All right, everybody. Dan, you are ready to rock and roll. Go for it, bud.
Cool. Thank you, sir. Well, hello, everyone. Hope you're having a great conf so far. I am Dan Hosaka. I am the PM for Splunkbase. Just joined a couple months ago, but really looking forward to talking to you today about the new Splunkbase experience. Just want to give a quick shout out to Chris, who helped me put together a couple of the collections here, which you'll see in a bit. Really jealous of that jacket, actually. So maybe once I become a Splunk .conf veteran, I'll get one of those jackets, but fingers crossed, I guess. Okay, so sorry, my voice is a little hoarse. I've been talking a little bit about Splunkbase over the last couple of days here, so if I need to get a drink, I apologize. So here's the new site. Hopefully you can all see that. There's a new sort of like try new Splunkbase button at the top there, which is brand new. We just launched it yesterday, so hopefully you've had a chance to run into that and experience it. If you haven't, feel free to go to Splunkbase right now and actually follow along with me, or just kind of like check it out afterwards. Up to you. But here, in terms of the new experience, we have like the classic Splunkbase. This will be like live for a while, so both the new experience and the classic experience will exist together. The new experience, you can get to this by sort of clicking on this button here. We give you a cool little modal that says like, here's what we're working on kind of thing. And then you can click on this visit new Splunkbase. So here we have like the new Splunkbase experience. So the first thing you see is obviously that it looks way different, right? So like the old Splunkbase or current Splunkbase experience is very kind of like white background. It was built in like 2015. So definitely needed a little bit of an update in terms of the visuals here. So the new experience, before I drain kind of like what's going on the homepage there, let's start up at the top, right? So you got this banner here that says you're currently on the preview mode for new Splunkbase. If you want to return to the original one, you can click here. So certainly it's always possible to like go back to the current experience if you would like to, right? So that option is always still there. And let me talk a little bit about what preview mode actually is. So preview mode here is essentially a way for us to say, this is our first iteration, our like beta, if you will. We are constantly getting like feedback from customers, from developers, from internal Splunkers, Splunk Trust, a bunch of different people, right, on like improvements that we could be making in the future. And actually, we have a mechanism to do that right in the site itself. So this is our sort of way of saying like this is our first cut of it. We want the community, all of our Splunkers, all of our developers, customers to come along this journey with us and kind of build this together, right? So starting off at the top nav here, we got this cool Splunkbase logo, and then it changes colors on hover, which I think is kind of cool. You have collections, which we'll talk about. It's a lightly kind of grouping together of apps. You have apps, which is the app directory. You have the global search, and then you have information if you want to just learn more about like what's going on with Splunkbase and any new like features or things that are coming up next. And then we have feedback. So I mentioned, collecting all of like the customer developer feedback and building along with you guys. So this is the mechanism that we'll do that with. So if you click on that button, it'll take you to prerelease.splunk.com. You'll log in and you can drop in any feedback that you have for us in there. And I would really appreciate it if you guys could do that. Okay, so looking at the homepage itself, so here's our, first thing that you see is our spotlight, which is today just has like Splunk add-on builder on it. Certainly will feature more apps, third-party developer apps, different announcements that we might have. So kind of like stay tuned for any like new announcement things coming up here. The next part we have is collections then. So we have 4 of them featured here. Today we have a total of 5. I think in the future we'll probably look at around like 20 or so. We want to keep it sort of lightweight, not too overwhelming. These are sort of the collections of apps that we have to showcase different outcomes, different use cases, and also actually services. So we'll get into those in a bit here. Going down a little bit, we have categories. So we've sort of categorized for those of you that want to think about apps in terms of like bucketing them in like cybersecurity, IT monitoring, data to everything and tools. This is where you can go to do that. And this is reflected in the app directory as well. We have announcements too. So if you have any, if you just want to like check out, what's new, certainly Tom from our PMM team is curating kind of what happens here in the announcements bar. But stay tuned for some of those things as well. And of course, if you're not finding the perfect app, certainly we would love for customers to become developers, and we have a great developer like ecosystem. So definitely, read up on documentation and submit your app once you have it ready. And so I think we have a pretty robust kind of way of doing that, and through dev.splunk.com. All right, so going back up here, let's start off with collections. So like I talked about a little bit before, collections are like a grouping of apps based off of like a specific outcome or use case that's delivered, or to showcase a new service that's coming out. So the first one we have is staff picks. This one's pretty basic, I think. It's essentially, what is Splunkbase? What is Splunkbase's view on what our like popular apps and add-ons are based off of like number of downloads, right? So you'll see that in there. I think that one's pretty basic. You have then examples of things that Splunk doesn't natively do, but can do with some of the integrations and apps that we have. So a good example of this is pipeline analytics for DevOps, and probably XDR as well. We'll go into pipeline analytics for DevOps here in a bit. And that's the one that Chris helped us out on. So shout out to Chris for that. We also have Accenture Cloud Services. So this is one that was announced yesterday during the keynote. So hope you guys all check that out. The Accenture Splunk business group was something that was announced yesterday, and their cloud first sort of product slash service is something that is featured here in this collection. So going to the top here, let's take a look at a couple of these just to show you guys like what's inside of these, right? So if you click on the collection here, let's say pipeline analytics for DevOps as an example. This one was authored by our very own Chris Riley. So again, thanks to Chris for that. So in Chris's view, I think, the big use cases that we need to fulfill if we want to deliver something like pipeline analytics for DevOps is, monitoring. So being able to kind of like, in his words, support the uptime and performance of your delivery chain. Here are a couple of apps that can do that for you, right? So Splunk apps for Jenkins. There's one, for Spinnaker, and then one for Terraform here too. There's also then like measuring success with DORA metrics, as well as like auditing and compliance for DevSecOps. So I think this is a good example of a bunch of different apps that grouped together can deliver this outcome, which is pipeline analytics for DevOps. So certainly, this is one collection. We have another one for like XDR, which is very similar, a bunch of apps that together then deliver that specific outcome. One of the unique ones is this Accenture Cloud Services one. So this is Accenture's new offering, which is Cloud First. I think you heard a little bit about it. I think they had their own sort of like announcement for it as well. So in conjunction with Accenture's Cloud Services, you have their services plus Splunk apps or product, which is ITSI, ES Content Update, Splunk On Call, as well as others. And the combination of those will give you this like cloud first experience. So if you want to this is just a landing page for that. If you want to learn more, you can certainly kind of go to this little button here, which sends you off to Accenture's page, where you can certainly learn a ton more about that actual service. I think this one's particularly important just from like the Splunkbase overall kind of experience, because it's our first ever kind of foray into having services on Splunkbase. So certainly, just because we have this Accenture one doesn't mean like we're going to stop there. We'll have more listed in collections, and then ultimately we'll have services more prominently featured in Splunkbase overall. All right, so going back to the home page here, if we go to like the apps directory, this is kind of like tried and true method of discovering apps, right? So when we talk to all of our customers, our developers, they say, hey, I just want to see all of the apps, and then I want to just be able to like filter based off of what I care about to the apps that make sense for my environment, right? So we have all the different app tiles here, all 2,000 plus. And you can certainly kind of like filter based off of different use cases. So let's just take like detection and monitoring in the security space. You can also filter based off of like the platform. So let's just do the Splunk stuff. And then we also have this concept of support, right? So previously we didn't have that in Splunkbase itself in the web experience. So sometimes you get mixed up in terms of like, oh, is this Splunk supported? Is this developer supported? Is it not supported? So we've tried to clear that up as much as possible in this new experience. So the star of the experience to me on the app directory itself is actually the app tile. So let's talk a little bit about that. So the tile itself contains all the information that you need right up front to make a decision about, you know, hey, is this app something that I really want to like learn more about, or is this not really like suited for my needs, right? So you have, of course, like the app title, who it's built by, a little short description, the platform that it's on, so whether it's Splunk or SOAR, since we do host SOAR apps now as well. The rating, so we found that ratings are super helpful for our customers to be able to like figure out if this is a good app or not, as well as the number of ratings, the number of times that it was rated, right? So that's also an important metric. I think the most important thing that we have here, actually, like I mentioned before, is the support type. So we have this cool little headset here with the Splunk colors to show whether this app is supported by Splunk. So that's what the Splunk supported ones look like. If you want like a developer supported one, it's like kind of in this blue color. And then for those that are actually like not supported, it's, you know, very clear here that it's not supported, right? And then similarly, you know, like the old experience, you can search for archived apps if that's, you know, something you want to do. And these are all sort of mentioned that they're archived, right? So these are sort of like use at your own risk kind of thing, but they're still available if you want to use them. Cool. So I think the rest of it is essentially the search, which, you know, hasn't changed too much. And this will take you to, so if I go to like Cisco, for instance, and just search for Cisco, you know, it'll drop me into this app directory, and then I can kind of like filter down as much as I want. Information, again, is super basic, just a sheet of what all is kind of in the new Splunkbase improvements, and then we'll certainly put more information on what's coming up next and how you can kind of contribute to that. And then there's a feedback tool, which will allow you to then give feedback or any like suggestions on things you want to see next. Two specific callouts before we move on to like questions, if you guys have any. If I go to collections, so you have like collections here. We're taking, you know, constant feedback in terms of like what you guys want to see here as well. So if you have an idea for a collection, or you want to see other apps featured in these collections that we currently have, please, you know, drop us some feedback there as well. We are also looking at the developer experience of Splunkbase too. So if you are familiar with Splunkbase today and you're a developer, you also know that you can actually like manage your listings, manage all your apps through Splunkbase. Today, this offering is just the customer-facing view of Splunkbase. We're also going to be working on like the developer-focused view of Splunkbase in the next couple of months or so. So definitely, you know, feel free to reach out on that if you're interested in contributing to how we're building that one as well. The other call out I'll make before I kind of turn it over to Tom for any questions is today the experience sort of stops here, right? So if you click on this app tile, it'll actually take you back to the current Splunkbase app listing. The very next thing we're working on is a revamped view of like the app listing. So that's a whole nother like big chunk of work that we're tackling right now. But I guess, you know, stay tuned for the new app listing. We're hoping to get that out by like mid-November or so. But for today, if you click on this app tile, it's going to take you back to the old kind of like Splunkbase app tile view. Cool. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing. And Tom, if you have any questions that you've seen online, happy to take those. Okay, so I'm an app developer. Is there anything I can do with my app listing to improve its presence in the new experience? Yeah, so this is something that we're actually working on over the next month or so. So when we see the new app listing experience, we'll come out with some app listing guidelines and best practices as well. So stay tuned for that. I think there will be plenty of opportunity to showcase kind of how the apps show up in the new like categories. So we're thinking about like the new categories I showed you guys, like cybersecurity, IT ops, those all have subcategories. So if you're familiar with like the Apple App Store, you have like number 1, number 2, number 3 within this category. So we're thinking about, surfacing it to customers that way. So perhaps a long-winded answer of saying, stay tuned. We're coming out with new app listing kind of best practices there too. When will this new experience completely replace the older Splunkbase? Yeah, good question. So I think once we have the app listings, we'll be in a good position to kind of like cut over on the customer experience side. I think the developer side as well, we need to think about whether that is going to be kind of complete in the next couple of months or so, or if that's going to take a little bit longer. So I guess, stay tuned on that one. I'm fingers crossed and hoping for probably like early part of next year for when we completely cut over to the new Splunkbase experience. At the same time, I saw that there was a question about like night mode. That is something I actually didn't mention, which was this is based off of the new Splunk like UI experience that's kind of across all of our products. So if you've seen some of like the new SOAR apps and like mission control and stuff like that, they're all built off of this new Splunk UI. So I believe we're moving towards this like dark mode design system. So for now, not necessarily like a toggle between night mode and light mode, if you will. Process change for developing an app. Nope, same process so far. I think we're making improvements to a couple of ways that you can submit apps and like app inspect and stuff like that. I think there's a couple of breakout sessions on like what's new with app inspect. But yeah, definitely working on some of those things as well. I noticed some of the apps I use are now archived. What does that mean? Okay, so basically what an archived app is if a developer decides that, hey, I've had my run with this app and I want to archive it, or I no longer want to support it, that's kind of what that means. So they basically archive it, put it in an archive state. They're no longer obligated to like support it or push out new releases, new updates, stuff like that. But from a customer's point of view, usually what we found is like there's still value in some of those apps, and so you should still be able to download it, tweak it if you want, and then like re-upload it as like a private app. So it's still useful to you, but it's not supported by the developer anymore. Are there any prerequisites to being an app developer and submitting to Splunkbase? Do I need to be a partner? So no, this is a great question actually. So today we have both like a business ecosystem, which is supported by like ISV, TAP partners. If you were in the partner session, you heard about the new build partners, right? So all of those folks definitely can build apps on Splunkbase, and that's one type of marketplace that we host, right? At the same time, we also support like individuals building for Splunk, right? So both of those types of marketplaces, if you will, both exist on Splunkbase, and we want to make sure that we support both of those folks. So you could be, the biggest company in the world, like the Cisco's, the Palo Altos of the world, and build for Splunkbase, but you could also be an individual that says like, hey, I built this really cool app. I want to share it with the world. You should be able to do that. Okay, good lead into that one is, can I make money with an app on Splunkbase? Yes, so you can do that today. We have an entitlement API, which allows you to essentially like monetize it on your own if you have like your own billing system, and then tell Splunkbase that, hey, this person is allowed to download this app now. Certainly there's probably like improvements we can make to that one, to the entitlement API. And I think that's like a first step. I think in the future, we'll be thinking about more like monetization tools that we can provide and stuff like that. But certainly it's possible today. In fact, if it's necessary or appropriate, we can probably do a kind of like monetization best practices kind of thing with the entitlements API, if that's interesting. Can my company put our private apps on Splunkbase just for our view within our employees? We have lots of Splunk users. Yeah, so I think this would fall into like the beta bucket. So you can sort of like restrict the view of like who can C apps. Today it's not. Oh, today it's not like as great as it can be, but certainly some room for improvements there. Okay, I think that's all we have on time. So certainly appreciate it, guys. And I think back to Josh. Thanks.
All right, Dan, thanks a lot. I, for one, have been a huge fan of Splunkbase for a very long time, and I'm really excited about all the new improvements and the things that y'all have done. So thank you for taking the time to share with everybody and making it part of Splunk TV today. Be the end of this session, and stay tuned. We've got even more coming. We got Greg Leffler and Jonathan Campos coming in just a moment. We're going to be talking about observability and open telemetry, so that'll be coming. We also have a ton more content. You can find all the places where we're streaming at splunk.tv. We're on all your favorite streaming platforms: LinkedIn Live, Twitch, and YouTube. Lots of great content through the rest of the day, but also there's so much great stuff happening at Conf. So if you haven't already registered, you can register for free, conf.splunk.com. Special guest today. They talked about it earlier this morning. We've got Mark Hamill. He's going to be here. Luke, I mean, what more could you ask for? All right. Thanks, everybody. We'll see you on the next show.